Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for August 23rd through 29th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I finally read The Lost Coast by Amy Rose Capetta. I've been meaning to read this book for actual years. I've had a copy of it since last BookNet Fest because somebody brought me their ARC, and just finally got around to it because I'm actually going to be talking about it on a live stream in a couple of weeks' time. The Lost Coast takes place in Tempest, which is a very small town in California that is surrounded by redwood trees. One of the most interesting aspects of this book is the various different points of view that you get. Sometimes you get chapters from the ravens in town. Sometimes you get chapters that are the entire collective consciousness of the high school students. Of course, you also get the perspective of our main character Danny, who has just moved to the town, but sometimes you get the perspective of 1 or 2 or a few of the Greys, who is a group of witches in the town, to get some perspective on their relationships and what's happened in the past and that type of thing. The Greys is a group of primarily girls. There is one non-binary member of the group who collectively come together to summon someone to help them with this problem, which is one of their members has gone missing. Through this magic, Danny arrives in the town not really knowing that she has magic. She just knows that she does some weird things sometimes. This was incredibly slow burn for me for the first half to 3/4, and then when you kind of started putting the pieces together, it really picked up. That sounds that I didn't like it and that I thought it was boring, but I actually really enjoyed that slow build-up. It just took me a lot longer to read it because it was so slow. If you want something witchy with a bunch of different queer characters and some autumn vibes, this is definitely one to pick up in the next 3 months or so, because in my household, I think we're skipping September and November and just doing triple October. Time means nothing in 2020, so you might as well. Next, I finished the graphic novel Almost Human. This is adapted from a webcomic that I actually read the entirety of back in April, and this is the first season or so of it. I actually did a reading vlog for this that'll be coming out next week, so look for that. But in short, this is about a futuristic world where these 2 characters meet on a subway platform and their ensuing relationship. This is set in a future where you can easily get things called mods or modifications, which can do things like fight diseases or just change the way that you look. However, there are some people in this world that have Egan syndrome, which basically means that their immune system is so good that it rejects the nanobots that do the modifications, so they can't rely on mods. One of these girls likes mods a lot, and one of these girls has Egan syndrome, so you can probably see where this is going. I did talk about this back in April, and I do have the reading vlog coming up, so I will move on to my next book, which was Hideous Beauty by William Hussey. This was so good. I didn't really know much going into this one besides it was queer, it was YA, it was male, and there was a mystery or thriller aspect to it. And honestly, that's all I really needed to know. This one is set in the UK and follows Dylan and Ellis. They are a couple, and Dylan is finally just coming out of the closet, mostly because he's been forced to do so. This is also one of the few books I've held in my hands that actually has content warnings at the front of it. So if you require content warnings for anything, definitely check this out because it tells you right on the first page what to look out for. I don't want to give away any more of the plot because all of it was a surprise to me and it had me reeling, so I want you to experience that if this is your type of book. It does go to some very, very dark places. There are some very dark topics, and at the center of it there are basically 3 mysteries that are trying to be figured out to piece together why life has gone this way. I know that's incredibly vague, but you're going to have to deal with it. I would also like to mention that friendships are very important in this book, and I love seeing that. On to the shows I watched. We've watched a lot of episodes of Parks and Rec, somewhere from the 2nd season into somewhere in the 4th season. It's a wonderful show. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time that I've seen it. It's great. I love the characters. I love going back and seeing all these things because oftentimes my roommate will be like, oh yeah, this episode is coming up, and I'll be like, I have no recollection of that specific thing you just said, but I'll watch the episode and be like, oh yeah, this is great. We also watched a little bit more of Scandal, and it kind of feels like we're saving it a little bit. We only do a couple of episodes a week, 1 because it's very intense, and 2 because we're in the 6th season, so we're getting closer and closer to the end of what we have. And we got to a point where I was like, oh, I blocked this out. I completely forgot about this terrible thing that happens. And every time we watch another episode, I swear that I haven't seen it until I'm like, oh no, I've seen this. I blocked it out though. And then of course the show that we're working on that I hadn't seen before is Ozark. We're still in the 2nd season, but we're close to the end of it. And just I could not manage as many things that are going on as Marty Bird has to manage. Let's just put it that way. Kathy from editing here, reminding you that if you're in your mid-30s and you don't write everything down, you forget to talk about things. Of course I watched this week's episode of Canada's Drag Race. I'm not gonna say anything because spoilers for people who might not have seen it, but next week is the finale, so it was right down to the wire. Finally, the book I listened to this week was The Break by Katherena Vermette. This is about a very large extended community of Indigenous folks living kind of across this community. Some of them are living together, some of them have been isolated by family members who are white, either on purpose or not, and we follow several different points of view. So one of the most interesting things was seeing how all of those points of view overlapped and who knew who and how everybody was related. Since this book did have so many characters, I would often forget who was related to who, or at least how they related to each other, but I would get the gist of what was going on, and I would be able to connect people together in vague terms, being like, I'm pretty sure that this person is related to this person. I don't know how, but they are connected somehow, and then it would come up later down the line, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I was correct, I just couldn't remember that they were cousins or aunts or that type of thing. This one starts out with an Indigenous woman who is up in the middle of the night because her baby is crying and she sees something happening outside her window that has her shook, so she calls the cops. It takes the cops a really long time to arrive, and when they get there they don't seem to really completely believe her story, and when her husband comes home, who is white, he kind of has the same feeling as the cops, like, oh, maybe you saw something because you were sleep deprived, or maybe you saw something worse than what was actually going on. You know, that infuriating bullshit. What follows from there is getting all of the backstory of what happened to this person that was assaulted outside of her house, exactly who did it. We find out in the end all of those details, but we see it from so many different points of view, and it is really this story about this entire community, and I feel like the plot was masterfully pulled off from all of these different points of view. I also found myself becoming very attached to different characters, and then to see the different heartbreak that they were going through was difficult. This was one of the books that I was hoping to read during the read-a-thon, but I didn't have the time, so I'm very glad that I was able to read it now. If you didn't see it, yesterday I did a review of the first book I've ever tabbed, which is Cemetery Boys by Aidan. I almost said Aidan Schmaden. His name is Aidan Thomas, his Twitter is Aidan Schmaden. I love his Twitter, so that's why that almost happened. If you haven't seen that before, I'll link that down below because this is my first book review as opposed to a book wrap-up, so it's a little bit more expanded and it's a video just about this one book, which you should know by now if you've been on my channel for a while that I absolutely loved. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I recently set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. That is linked down below, as well as my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you want to send me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!